Jake Paul recently lost $1,000 to UFC rising star Bo Nickal in a boxing skill challenge for the latter's latest episode of his podcast Bo Gets Betr. For the challenge, Paul and Nickal tried to complete as many punches with a reflex ball that was tied to their head. Though it may not be strictly reflective of boxing abilities, which the fighters both agreed to, the activity requires an impressive level of hand-eye coordination. Now you would think a boxer would be better at this challenge than an MMA fighter. After all, punching is all you have to think about in boxing. In MMA, you've got a lot more to think about, a lot more to master, therefore a lot more to train in. But, it wasn't the boxer who won this challenge, it was the MMA guy in Bo Nickal, resulting in the problem child losing $1,000 of his own money. A drop in the ocean in reality for him, but a loss nonetheless. Before the two got the challenge underway, they agreed to a charity bet with the loser donating $1,000, and they also agreed not to watch the other. So that the person going second had no idea what score they have to achieve. Bo Nickal, representing MMA, went first. Nickal stepped up first and completed 8 punches before missing the ball, while Paul, who went after, fell too short of his total, completing only 6. In the end, both the fighters agreed to donate $1,000 to Paul's foundation Boxing Bullies, which aims to use the sport and the sports community to combat bullying and aid those who have suffered from bullying. Paul set up the foundation back in 2021. Paul will be hoping that this challenge isn't reflective of his boxing skills in the ring, as he is set to face Nate Diaz at the American Airlines Center in Dallas on the 5th of August. Paul is going into the fight off the back of his first professional defeat, losing to Tommy Fury via split decision earlier this year in Saudi Arabia. Meanwhile, Diaz is coming in off a victory over Tony Ferguson in the octagon. But that was in a different sport entirely and almost a year ago now. Paul began fighting in 2018 when he won his amateur fight against YouTuber Deji Olatunji, the brother of KSI, and he got his professional career off to a winning start after his victory over another YouTuber in an Ensign Gib via TKO in January 2020. Since then, he's beaten Nate Robinson, Ben Askren, Tyron Woodley twice, and Anderson Silva. Not the most stacked in terms of boxing opponents, but impressive wins nonetheless, especially against respected MMA fighters. Since he began his career, there have been questions hanging over Paul's head about whether he was serious about the sport or how long he would last, but so far, he continues to display a commitment to the sport that is expected of a professional athlete. After losing against Tommy Fury, a fight which had garnered extensive media attention, Paul didn't throw the towel in, but instead, according to Sports Illustrated, he re-evaluated and shook up his coaching staff, choosing to bring back his first coach Shane Mosley. Yet, while Paul is still relatively new to the sport, his name is impossible to ignore. His self-promotion is nearly unrivaled, and he knows exactly how to draw the maximum amount of media focus. It is hardly surprising that someone who promoted their life on YouTube for a living can successfully market themselves in a different space, thriving off crossing boundaries and using shock tactics to lure audiences in. Paul knows how to attract the world's attention. Prior to his matchup against Tommy Fury, which went through a series of cancellations and postponements, Paul's trash-talking was relentless. He repeatedly mentioned Fury's girlfriend Molly May Hague, commenting on her Instagram posts, while chastising Fury nearly daily on his Instagram stories. Fury also engaged in the pre-match build-up, but Paul always seemed to hold the upper hand before the two set foot in the ring. However, unlike Paul's previous fights, which were all against fairly novice competitors, Fury had been training as a professional boxer long before the problem child entered the sport. Fury was declared victorious in a split decision result, but Paul once again had highlighted that he wasn't taking his boxing career lightly and could keep up with the professionals. Paul is continuing to cement his place in the professional boxing world, and his upcoming fight against Nate Diaz is a real signifier in Paul's career. Fighting Diaz feels like he is marking a new era of his career. No longer just fighting YouTubers or low-level opponents. Diaz is considered one of the top fighters, albeit in a different sport, which does make a massive difference. And so for Paul's name even to be in the conversation around Diaz signifies that this is no longer simply a side hobby. Paul is all in on fighting. Paul and his brother Logan, who is also a YouTuber, have spoken out on the benefits to fighting beyond the 6- and 7-figure checks. Paul has said that he wanted to change the landscape of boxing. And he's certainly made some moves that have altered the boxing world. For one, he has made a concerted effort to elevate women's boxing. In 2022, he partnered with promoter Eddie Hearn to put on the most successful women's fight ever between Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor to a sold-out audience at Madison Square Garden. He is determined to make his mark on the boxing world both inside and outside the ring. Jake Paul has certainly had his critics, and will continue to do so, but it appears that as his career progresses, he is zeroing in on boxing. This weekend's coming fight will be a crucial test, if Paul can keep up with UFC legend Nate Diaz. Then his skeptics will surely be silenced.